G'day guys, Socket here. Today's viewer's question comes from Vikash who writes, I have a small request. Could you please make a video showing how to tune a subwoofer using a UMIC 1? Yeah mate, I'm happy to do that, so we will take a look at that today. So in today's tutorial we're going to look at how to time align your subwoofer with the front end of your car so that you end up with the bass up on the dashboard in the middle of the windscreen, where it belongs. And we're going to look at two different ways of doing that. One using the moving mic method, and the other way is using phase and impulse to do your time alignment, if that's the way you like to roll. But first let's answer Vikash's question. He asks about doing his time alignment using a UMIC 1. So if you're not familiar, a UMIC 1 is a type of USB mic made by Mini DSP or branded Mini DSP or whatever. Now you don't actually need a UMIC to do this. Any USB microphone will work with this technique using the moving mic method. And if you're familiar with the moving mic method, you will know that you'll need a USB microphone, a laptop, copy of REW, a copy of your software so that you can control your DSP, and we would also use pink noise, either correlated or uncorrelated, to do all of our measurements and things. But when we're doing the sub time alignment, you can either use what we call band limited pink noise, or you can use a sine tone. So let me just explain a little bit about these special test signals. So let's just paint a little bit of a picture here, or make up an example of what we're doing and how it kind of works. So let's say that you have a subwoofer in the trunk of your car, and you have a system where you have your mid bass, mids and tweeters at the front of your car, on the pillars or wherever they are. And you've got to the point in the tuning process where you've time aligned your front end. So your tweeters to your mids, and your mids to your mid bass, and now you're ready to time align and bring the sub into the system, right? Now, up to this point, when you're doing your time alignment, you're probably using correlated pink noise, and all of that type of stuff, to try to get the maximum summation. And you can do that with the subs, but because the sub is playing such long wavelengths, it's often easier to use these band limited signals, just to make life a little bit easier, so that you're sort of honing into a very specific part of the frequency range and not having to have that sort of messed up with a whole bunch of other frequencies playing at the same time. So the way this technique kind of works is, let's say that in this example we're going to time align the subs to the mid bass. Okay, so what we're looking for is at the crossover point between the mid bass and the subs, when when both speakers are playing, we will get a 6 dB summation through the crossover zone, right? So let's say we look at our subs and our mid bass and we go, well, the crossover is at 80 Hertz. Great. So what we're looking for is 6 dB of summation, or the volume increasing by 6 dB at 80 Hertz, right? So instead of playing sort of generic uncorrelated pink noise as we would when we're time aligning our other speakers, what we want to do is play a test tone at 80 Hertz so that we not hearing all the other frequencies as well. And as I said, there are two basic signals that we could use: a band limited pink noise, correlated pink noise, at 80 Hertz, and you can generate that in the REW tone generator, or you could download that from the net somewhere, and you can use that to time align your sub to your front end. Some people use that. Now I personally prefer to use a 80 Hertz sine tone. This crossover is 80 Hertz. If the crossover is at 55, then I'd use a 55 Hertz a sine tone. But a sine tone is different to pink noise. You'll see them, when they're talking about setting gains on amplifiers, you get this sort of squiggly up and down line, or whatever. That's a sine tone, and it works the same way as pink noise. We're just listening for that 6 dB increase. The difference is with the sine tone, it's a solid tone instead of a hiss like the pink noise, and so I find it a lot easier to listen to. So what we're looking for is, when you're playing the test signal, we're listening for when the two speakers are constructively adding the signal together. It will be the loudest in our cabin, and that sound should be coming from, concentrated in the middle of the dashboard in front of us, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. Now, that said, I find it very difficult to actually pick the exact point when it's at its absolute maximum. It's very difficult. I find it very difficult to hear. Other people find it pretty easy, but I'm certainly not one of those. So the other way, or the other technique that I've seen people use, and I use this a lot as well, is to flip the polarity on the subwoofer so that it's opposite polarity to my mid bass. And so instead of listening for when I've got the maximum summation between the two speakers, I'm looking or listening for the maximum cancellation, right? So I'm listening for when the system is the quietest. And in fact, I can flip between the two. I can flip the polarity back and forth. So I can listen for, okay, is it a little bit quieter or a little bit louder when I flip them, or is it, at the maximum, for want of a better term, right? And I find that flipping the polarity back and forth helps me find, that maximum spot a little bit easier. But it's not an easy technique to do by ear. It took me a long time to actually try to figure out what I'm listening for, because we're essentially listening for, a 3 to 6 dB summation, and we're kind of listening for a 3 to 6 dB cancellation, and in the middle of all of this loud signal, it's not easy to hear, but that's the way it's kind of done. So let me play you a demo that I did out in the car. Hopefully that will sort of clear things up for you. Now, first of all, I just need to say this isn't the best recording ever. I'm just using my crappy old Android phone in the car, and what it does is when I play the signal pretty loud, it basically, I don't know, goes into mute mode or something like that. And so if you're when you're watching the video, it doesn't sound very loud, but believe me, I'm playing at about 85, 90 dB in the car. It's pretty loud. It's sort of rattling. It's rattling panels and things in there. It is pretty loud, even though it doesn't sound like that. And if you're having trouble hearing me over the signal, just use the closed captions to kind of follow along. But yeah, as I said, apologies for the quality of the recording. It is what it is, but hopefully you'll get enough out of it and you'll get the idea. G'day guys, Socket here. So today we're going to have a look at how to timeline your subwoofer. We're going to use two methods. One is the moving mic method, and the other one is doing the sweeps. So this is the rear sub that we're going to try to timeline out to the front speakers. So this is a little Hertz MPS 250, I think it is. Pretty sure it's a 10-inch subwoofer. I need to check that. Just in a down-firing box. Yeah, so let's get into it. Okay guys, so we are out in the car, and I've got one of the tunes kind of loaded up, and we're going to do the time alignment using the manual method between the rear sub, and in this case I'm going to use the front sub, time align it to that, but it's the same if you don't have a front sub. Just time align it to your mid bass. The process is exactly the same. Now, starting off, I've got my, sorry, I'm trying to do this with the phone, so I'm just going to select my subwoofers, and that is down, these rear subwoofers are down at minus 14 dB, and the front subwoofer is down at, what's that, minus 10. So they're both down pretty low, and if I play something now, just whatever, you might be able to hear that, and if I turn it, okay, well that's thumping a bit, and if I now turn on my bass volume, oh, that sounds pretty shocking, but that's both basses turned all the way up, right? I'm just going to back that off a little bit. Stop this for a second. So essentially what you want is the volume loud enough that you can hear the bass. So we're going to play a tone, right? on the tone generator in a moment, and if the volume is not high enough, we might have to play around with the gains in the tune, you know, bring them up to -5 or, you know, even 0 dB or something, just so that we can, you know, we need the bass playing, you know, about 70-80 dB, right, to be able to hear, you know, when the subs are in alignment, right? So just give me 1 minute and I'll be right back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is basically with the rear subwoofer timing, turn it all the way down to 0, and I have the front subwoofer set at 1 millisecond. And so what we're going to do is go into this thing called a tone generator, right? And what we want to do is play a tone at the crossover of the front and the rear sub, right? So I'm just going to see if I can bring that up now. So it's the front sub and the rear sub. I want them to both be displaying at the same time. And if we have a look at that, there's the crossover there. So it's crossing over at about 39 hertz, right? So I'm going to play a test tone at 39 hertz, and what we want to do is see where the subs are summing up, right? So this is the app that I'm going to use. It's called Signal Generator. I'll put a posted the app symbol up here on the screen in a minute. So I now want to set that to 40 hertz. So I'll just sort of turn it around here. It's hard to do with one hand. 40 hertz, right, close enough. And I'm going to set it at 0 dB and just play that. Okay, that's plenty loud enough. Might back that off a little bit. Alright, try that again. That's a bit better. Alright, so what we're going to do is with the 40 hertz tone playing is I'm actually going to flip the polarity on the front. It doesn't really matter which one, but we're going to flip the polarity on one of these sets of speakers. So at the moment they're both normal. So I'm going to flip the polarity on the front sub. And what we're looking for, as I'm going to play with the delay, is the point at which there's maximum cancellation between the front and the rear, right? So it's going to be a bit loud, but so what I'm going to do is play the tone, add delay until a point where I can hear it as quiet as possible. And when we flip the polarity back, we should get maximum summation. So, all right, so just play this. All right, so I'm just going to go into the time alignment now, and I'm going to start adding delay to the front subwoofer. And I can hear that's already starting to get quieter. Right, keep going. It's a little bit hard to hear, but I started hearing getting a little bit quieter now. And it's not going to be like complete cancellation, but okay, well that sounds like the point at which it's the quietest, so I'm going to flip the polarity. Yep, I can hear that. It's much louder. Quiet, loud, quiet, loud. And as I flip it, the bass is right up here in front of the screen, so it's about as easy as that, right? It is a little bit difficult to hear if you're having trouble hearing it. Just keep flipping the polarity back and forth and you'll be able to hear the difference about whether it's summing up or not. But that's the basic technique, guys. All right. Okay, so that's how you do time alignment using the moving mic method. Now we're going to move on and look at how you time align your subs using phase and impulse. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you will know that you can't get phase and impulse information using the moving mic method. You have to use a technique called fixed mic, where you put a microphone at the headrest of the listening position and you measure your speakers using what we call a sweep. Which is in the REW sweep measurement tool. And so that's the way you get phased impulse information. And once you have that, then you can kind of align your phase plots or align your impulses. And when we're doing subwoofers and low frequency drivers, we tend to align the phase using a thing called the alignment tool. Now, I've covered all of this in the REW time alignment tutorial videos. I'll put a link and a bit of a description up here on the screen so you can go track that down if you want to dive into the detail, but I'll go through it quickly again today. So let's assume that you've gone and taken all of your sweep measurements and you've time aligned the front end of your car audio system, and now you're ready to bring the subwoofer in. Now, as I said, this technique works regardless of whether you are time aligning your sub to a front sub or to your mid bass. Doesn't really matter, it works exactly the same way. In this example, I'm going to use my sweep measurements and I'm going to time align my rear sub to my front sub. So let's open up REW and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, let's open up REW and we'll just get rid of that, and let's open up our measurements, and we'll open up all SPL, or click on all SPL, get rid of everything by right clicking and clearing all the selections, and we want the front sub, which is measurement 15, and the rear sub, which is measurement 16, right? So here we go. So we've got the front sub in green and we've got the rear sub in blue, and they're crossing over at about 65, right? So we've done all our EQ work. We've time aligned all our other speakers. Now we want to time align the rear sub to the front sub. So first of all, let's see how these two are summing up. So we can do that by clicking on Actions and then Trace Arithmetic up here, and then selecting measurements 15 and 16 to add together. So measurement 15 and 16. Right, front sub and rear sub, A plus B, and let's generate a measurement, and that is the sum between the two. So we can just grab this one here. So this will be front plus rear sub, right? And we'll slide that all the way up the top here so it's handy. There we go, righto. Okay, so what's going on here? We can see that it's not really summing up perfectly. It's got a bit of a dip here, which means they're not properly time aligned. If this was time aligned properly, we'd probably see it running, through like, through here somewhere. So we'd need to add some delay to the front sub to get this sort of sorted out. So let's go and take a look at the phase and see what's going on. So we go into overlays, we click on phase, and then we just clear everything out so we've got a nice clean slate, and start with measurement 15, which is the front sub, and measurement 16, which is the rear sub. And so here are the phase plots, right? And the sub is way down here at the bottom, right down here somewhere. Let's just zoom out a little bit, and we can see we'll go from, well, let's actually have a look at the crossover range that this thing is playing from. So we go back to this measure here, and the way we can figure out the crossover range is by upping and downing 10 dB, this type of thing. But we can eyeball it as well. So it's probably playing from about 45 through to, I don't know, 90, something like that. Is probably where the two speakers are crossing over, right, that range. So we go back into our phase now, and so let's control right click and draw a box between 45 and 90 odd. So let's make it 100, right? So that represents the crossover range. And we said that the crossover is at about 65. So bang, right there. And so what we can see is that the reason we're getting a bit of a cancellation is because these are not within 60 degrees of each other. If I click here, that's at minus, call it minus 79, minus 80, and this one is at 22. So we've got 102 degrees of degrees out of phase, and so to get these time aligned, we need these on top of each other, without this one or this one being impacted too much. Right? If I zoom out a little bit, you can see that down here at around about, what is that, 45. They're pretty close, and up here at 100, they're also pretty close. But here at the crossover, where it's the most important or the most sensitive, we've got a bit of a gap, and that's why we're getting this, this dip. Now, there's not much point at looking at the impulse. I mean, we can go and have a look at the impulse quickly of these two speakers. So clear everything out. We want 15 and 16, and we want to say fit to data. That's apparently what they look like, but it's very hard to use impulse for low frequency drivers. You're much better using phase and using impulse for high frequency drivers. So we'll just leave impulse for the minute, and let's go back and see if we can get the phase matched up. Alright, so to align this one and figure out how much delay we need to add to the front sub, we need to click on Actions and use the Alignment tool. Okay, so with the Alignment tool we have, what's going on here? Oh, we have to select our speakers first. So first of all, we want to select the speaker that is closest to us, which will be the front sub, which will be measurement 15, and the rear sub, which will be measurement 16, right? So that's the two of them there. And you can see, so first, oh gosh, I just closed that. Sorry about that, guys. Alignment tool. 15, 16, that's better. Alright, so first of all, what we can see up here is how the two speakers are summing up. So that's the black line, and the dotted line is the maximum summation. That's what we want to aim for. And down here are the phase plots, right? The green line is the front sub, the blue line is the rear sub, the black line is the two together, and our crossover is right here at 65, and you can see, we've got the very wide gap between these 2 points, right? This is what we want to line up. Now, the way that we can line this up is by adjusting this fine delay adjustment by adding delay to the front sub. So let me just click on that little button, and then I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to add delay, right? So here we go, and you'll watch what happens to the graphs and the black line where it's summing, and I'll keep doing this, holding it down until we get the green and the blue line overlapping like that. Bang. And so you'll notice a couple of things. Now it's in phase, and you can see the summation line is now following up along here. But what's also happened is this gap has opened up right here at about the 100 mark, and we said that our crossover is from 45 through to about 95 or something like that. So ideally, you don't necessarily want this to be on top of each other. You want that 60 degrees of phase to be shared between all of these, right? So to get these a little bit closer in line, I'd probably back off the delay a little bit here, just to give us a bit of compromise between the lot. And you can see that the maximum summation line is getting closer to the dotted line right through the crossover region, right? But you can suit yourself. This is a personal thing, and you'd listen to it with your ears to see whether it sounds like it's all summing up as well. Don't just trust the graphs. So here I would have it minus 38 through to minus 71. That's about as far as I'd probably want to go, and at 95 the gap is much larger, right? So you know what, just to make things easy, we'll just line these two up. So click on that. Just keep adding delay until it's sort of on top of each other like that. Bang. Now it's not going to sum up as well down here, but that's less important because it's almost out of the crossover region. But we've got maximum summation through the crossover, right? So That means that we need to add 3.84 milliseconds of delay to the front sub to get the front sub and the rear sub aligned. Now, just to simulate that, we can click here on Align Copy, which will add a copy down the bottom here. So that'll be front sub plus 3.84 milliseconds, right? So we go and put that 3.84 milliseconds into your DSP for the front sub, and then you would remeasure it, right? In this case, we're just simulating it, so let us just do that for a second. Okay, so now we have a new measure for the front sub. I'm going to put it there, and let's sum this new measure and the rear sub up and see the difference. So we've got Actions, Trace. We're going to want the new measure of the front sub, which is number 16, and the rear sub, which is now number 17, right? And generate a new measure, and you can see now it's sort of adding up much better. So this will be the rear plus front sub, front sub plus 3.84 milliseconds, right, of delay added, and this is the sum of the two. I'm just going to change that to, I don't know, bright red. How about that? Alright, I'll slide that up to top, and so we can have a look at the original summation and the new summation now. So if I now select this one here, number 18, we can see how it was originally, and now we've got maximum summation through the crossover region. That has improved by another probably 3 dB, right? Now it's got worse here, because what we did was we opened up the phase around that 80 to 90 mark, and as I said before, you can sort of tweak around to sort of get the best balance that you like. But just to keep things nice and simple, I've maxed out the summation at the crossover point. And so that's how you go about time aligning your sub using the phase and impulse method. So there we go, guys. That brings us to the end of another tutorial. So Vikash, I hope that answered your question, mate. And for everybody else, I hope you found that useful. Once again, I really appreciate you all choosing to watch the channel and to tune into these tutorials. I really appreciate your support. So once again, guys, thanks so much, and I will catch you in the next episode.